Alright, here we are, about to jump into the first top 4 match of the Midseason Showdown in Independence, Missouri at Game Cafe. So this match, we're going to have Tom Vehewald versus Matthew Carter. Matt, we just saw play his top 8 match against Ethan Simpson, winning in 3 games and really utilizing Pheromosa. I'm personally excited for this match because these are 2 players that I know well, and also, I'm just really excited for the Pheromosa mirror. Pheromosa's kind of been seen as a joke Pokemon, but it's very threatening offensively, and obviously both of these players have been having some success with it. So, on the left is Tom's team, which consists of Arcanine, Tapu Fini, Kartana, Alolan Form Raichu, Snorlax, and Pheromosa. And on the right is Matthew's team, which consists of Mimikyu, Garchomp, Pheromosa, Butterfree, Arcanine, and Salazzle. So both of these teams, they've got a fake out option in either Salazzle or Raichu. They both have Pheromosa, and they both have the Arcanine, which is certainly something that Pheromosa doesn't like facing up against. Arcanine will be able to deal quite a bit of damage to both Pheromosa and Butterfree, or inversely to Pheromosa and Kartana. So definitely a Pokemon we can probably expect to see at least one of the trainers bring. So both players ready to go, locking in their 4 Pokemon to bring to the battle, and we're going in to turn 0. We're going to see what each of these trainers brought. So there you go. You see Arcanine and Pheromosa on Tom's side of the field, and Butterfree and Salazzle coming out for Matt. So the Intimidate on this Arcanine isn't really going to do anything against these 2 special attackers. However, Arcanine is there just to threaten damage onto that Butterfree. You know, a Flare Blitz, Butterfree doesn't have a lot of help or a lot of defenses, so a Flare Blitz into Butterfree is going to be enough to bring it down to Sash very easily. Now, Butterfree, if it's able to get a chance to attack into this Pheromosa, it'll be able to hit Pheromosa with a 4x super effective Air Slash, which, given Pheromosa's paper-thin defenses, would be enough to pick up the KO. Matt definitely threatening Fake Out here, which he does go for, into the Pheromosa, so Pheromosa is just going to be a sitting duck this turn to take damage, while the Arcanine does go for a Flare Blitz, and Flare Blitz does connect with the Butterfree, brings it down to its Focus Sash. And Butterfree opts not to go on the offensive, but rather to set Tailwind. And so that's going to be huge, because now Salazzle is going to be faster than Tom's Pheromosa, going to be able to deal a lot of damage to it. Arcanine does potentially have an extreme speed that it could use to move ahead of Salazzle. Salazzle doesn't have the greatest defenses in the world, but I'm not sure if the extreme speed would be enough to pick up the KO or not. So Tom, recognizing that Pheromosa's in a bit of a tough spot, let's get her out of there. Switches Pheromosa out for Tapu Fini. The other thing that's going to do, that's a really good switch to make, is it takes away the ability for Butterfree to spam it takes away Butterfree's ability to spam Sleep Powder. So Tapu Fini takes that fire attack with ease, only dealing about 30% or so to it. So it's definitely sitting in a much more comfortable position than that Pheromosa would have been. You know, Pheromosa gets KO'd by room temperature, so it's definitely not want to take any fire attacks from that Life Orb Salazzle. The Arcanine's Extreme Speed did go into the Protect on Butterfree's side, so dealing no damage. But definitely good. It does threaten, that's down to Sash. It's not going to be able to take much more damage. So Tapu Fini, opting to Protect, doesn't want to take a Sludge Bomb from this Salazzle, which does fire the Sludge Bomb into the Protect, as Air Slash also goes into the Protect. So there's a free turn for Tom to fire off, I believe this is the Z Electric Dance. Yeah, so this is a Gigavolt Havoc Arcanine, going to be firing off a very powerful electric attack. Looks like into the Salazzle slot. Hopefully that's enough to KO, or I imagine Tom's hoping that's enough to KO, and it is. So he does pick up the KO on the Salazzle, and that's going to be huge because that does make Tapu Fini just a little bit safer in this matchup. So now we see Garchomp coming in. Garchomp is going to be able to deal a lot of damage to Arcanine with a Z ground. So that's definitely something Arcanine doesn't want to have to take. However, Garchomp can also be threatened by Tapu Fini firing off a Moonblast or even an Ice Beam. Some players have been known to run Ice Beam on their Tapu Fini in order to deal with Garchomp a little bit better. So while Garchomp can take a KO on this Arcanine, it's going to be put at risk to be taking a lot of damage from Tapu Fini. So we do see the Z Dance, going to see that Continental Crush coming out. Now, Matt could have chosen to target the Tapu Fini slot with this Garchomp rather than targeting the Arcanine slot. So if he did that, that'll be a really good turn. He'll be able to take this Tapu Fini off of the field due to the damage that it took previously. So Tapu Fini does go down, and Butterfree went for the Air Slash, and Tailwind ends. So Tailwind ending is a really big one, because that means that, if Tom brings in his Pheromosa, which he does, it's going to be faster than Matt's Garchomp now. Some Pheromosas have been known to run like mixed with Life Orb and Ice Beam. If it's got the Ice Beam that it can fire into that Garchomp slot, it'll be able to pick up the KO, which will definitely help to protect Arcanine. Now, one thing we have to remember is Butterfree can learn... Can it? No, it can learn Rage Powder, but I do believe in the streamed matches we've seen of Matt that he's revealed 4 moves. Because he's got Protect, Air Slash, Sleep Powder, and Tailwind. And the Ice Beam does go, it does connect with the Garchomp, and so that will be enough to pick up the KO, and that's going to be huge. As Pheromosa gets an attack boost from the KO on with Ice Beam onto Garchomp, so that is going to show us that that's probably a physically based Pheromosa to deal damage with like High Jump Kick and U-Turn. So now we have the 2 Pheromosas facing off, and because we know that both of them have received the attack boost when they get KOs, it's quite possible that this is a speed tie, and this could just come down to some RNG 50-50s, which one is going to be able to move first. Now, Arcanine, we have seen it has extreme speed at its disposal, which will do a lot of damage to Pheromosa. Definitely something that Tom has as an option. Most of the time, I don't think that extreme speed is enough to pick up the KO, but I could be wrong. And so the Ice Beam does go from Tom's Pheromosa first into the Butterfree, gets that off of the field. As Matt goes for the High Jump Kick into Arcanine, which is enough to pick up the KO and will give Matt's Pheromosa a +1 in attack as well. So now we have Pheromosa versus whatever the 4th Mon that Tom brought and his own Pheromosa. And we do see Raichu coming out. So that's going to be big. Raichu will be able to fake out this Pheromosa to get free damage from his own Pheromosa. And then after that, Matt can only take 1 KO at a time, so that will leave at least 1 Pokemon on the field to deal damage to Matt's Pheromosa. So it does look like Tom has this game pretty well locked up. As this Ice Beam connects with the Pheromosa, deals quite a bit of damage, leaving Pheromosa with only about 15% or so of its HP remaining. So an attack from either one of these Pokemon will be enough to pick up the KO and take game 1 in Tom's favor. So the Pheromosa does go for the High Jump Kick into the Raichu, picks up a 1-hit KO. despite being a resisted hit. Now, this was at +1, and it looks like Tom's Pheromosa will fire off an Ice Beam to finish up the game. So one thing I do want to talk about Tom's team a little bit is that he has the Alolan Raichu on his team, but he doesn't have a Tapu Koko to support it for the speed control. So it's likely that he's been using it just as a way to counter the many opposing Tapu Kokos that he sees. You know, it's like, oh, they've got Tapu Koko, I can bring out my Raichu, and it'll be faster than everything because it'll have electric terrain. Not a Pokemon we see often not paired in the Koko-Chew pairing, so it's interesting to see that that's how he chooses to play the Lowland form of Raichu. And here we go. Gonna jump into game 2 of this elimination round. And we're gonna see how these two trainers have decided to switch up what they've brought, you know, or if they're like, what I brought was the right thing to bring. We'll see how it goes. So Matt choosing to lead with Salazzle and Pheromosa, while Tom leads with Raichu, Pheromosa. So this is an interesting thing again. Salazzle does threaten the faster fake out than Raichu. So it will be free to fake out Raichu to leave his own Pheromosa to attack. However, you know, if he does that, there's still the threat of, you know, a speed tie going the wrong way. And while it's certainly possible, it is indeed a speed tie because we saw Matt's Pheromosa move first once and Tom's Pheromosa move first once in the game previously. So that opens up a 50-50 that you just can't play correctly. So Tom sees this. He doesn't want to risk a 50-50 right now. He brings in Arcanine to intimidate the Pheromosa, which is going to slow down its damage a little bit as Salazzle goes for the fake out into Raichu. Now, if Pheromosa goes for a U-turn here, it'll be a free KO into that Raichu. However, it goes for the high jump kick into Arcanine, which deals just barely not enough damage to KO. So that's quite a turn. Matt gets a lot of damage off while taking only Life Orb recoil in return. So now, Matt does have the speed advantage. Both of his Pokemon are faster than both of Tom's Pokemon. However, Arcanine does threaten extreme speed, which will be able to deal, while not KOing the Pheromosa, it will be able to deal a decent amount. As Pheromosa fires a high jump kick into Arcanine, taking half of its HP in damage, so that's going to be huge as this overheat connects with Raichu, will KO Raichu, but it does greatly lower the special attack of Salazzle, makes it much less of a threat. And so now, after taking that 50% recoil from the life or from the high jump kick going into protect, that puts Pheromosa in a much more threatened position for Arcanine to go for an extreme speed into it. And Pheromosa coming out, it's going to be able to threaten a lot of damage onto this Salazzle, as well as Salazzle being at -2. Although if Salazzle does choose to stay on the field, -2 fire type attack is most likely going to be enough to pick up the KO on Pheromosa. You know, if it goes for the overheat, thanks to the Life Orb boost, it will be able to deal a lot of damage to Pheromosa. However, Pheromosa goes for an Ice Beam into the opposing Pheromosa, and that is enough to pick up the KO. It's interesting to see Tom go for that, as the Salazzle goes for a Sludge Bomb into Arcanine, critical hit, although Arcanine was at only 28 HP, so possible that didn't matter. It's interesting to see Tom locking into Ice Beam there, maybe fishing for a Garchomp switch in, because switching in a Garchomp to take the potential extreme speed from Arcanine, to let it KO to Rough Skin. So that's not a bad read that I think Tom was trying to make. It just didn't pay off for him this time. Matt decided, you know what, Pheromosa's done enough work. It's done a huge chunk of damage to Arcanine, and it's helped me KO Raichu. So maybe I don't need it anymore, and maybe it's okay to just leave it. So now this Salazzle at -2 special attack isn't going to be able to deal a whole lot of damage, and Matt recognizes that and wants to get it off the field. So Pheromosa goes for Protect, so it is not locked into a choice item, which is definitely interesting. Given last game, clicking Ice Beam regardless of what the opponent had, definitely something he wanted to do to maybe bait Matt into thinking that he was indeed a choice variant. So this Inferno Overdrive probably going into Pheromosa. Pheromosa protected and is only going to take 25% of the damage it would have, but given its paper-thin defenses, it's going to deal a ton of damage. So even though it protected, Pheromosa still is only brought all the way down to its Focus Sash. So now if this Arcanine goes for the extreme speed, it's going to be able to pick up the KO on Pheromosa, leaving this Tapu Fini to take damage from the Garchomp. So Matt does go for the extreme speed, getting rid of Pheromosa, leaving Tapu Fini versus Salazzle and Garchomp. So this is going to be looks like game 2 going in Matt's favor, most likely, given that he will have the opportunity to just Sludge Bomb the Tapu Fini. However, because he's already busted his Z move with his Arcanine, he won't be able to Z ground into Tapu Fini, which means he'll have to go for a different move with his Garchomp. However, Tom realizes that no, this game isn't winnable. Let's go ahead, let's not waste the time, and get into game 3. So that was some really big information that Matt gained from Tom, realizing that his Pheromosa is a Focus Sash variant that definitely changes the way you play against it. And so that's going to be some key information for Matt going into Game 3, knowing that he needs to play around the Focus Sash on Pheromosa. And also, if Tom chooses to bring the Kartana, that is not a Focus Sash variant. So Tom, really confident with what he wants to use, locked in after only 15 seconds of team preview. I imagine he's had this game plan for, the latter half of Game 2, and he's just ready to go. Matt taking a little bit more time, figuring out he was able to take the game off of Tom this time, figuring out if he can do the same thing to continue to press that advantage or not. And here we go, the last turn 0 of this set. We're going to see which trainers switched it up, if they want to keep it the same, if they just want to play differently. And I'm excited to see the leads. We'll see what the trainers are going to be dealing with. So, Tom going with Arcanine and Pheromosa, really liking the offensive presence that those two have together, while Matt opts to use Salazzle and Pheromosa. So this is definitely Pheromosa threatens Arcanine a lot. We saw how much damage its high jump kick is able to do, despite Intimidate. And also we see that the fake out pressure is there, which is really going to force Tom to maybe be a little careful with what he chooses to do here. He doesn't want to just give up a Pokemon for free. So there's a lot going on in the minds of these players, you know, like what's going to happen, who are they going to attack, what are they going to attack into, as Tom says, let's play it safe. I know there's fake out on this opposing side of the field. I don't want to take any more damage than I have to. And Matt deciding, I've seen him protect with both of these Pokemon. I don't want to fire off a high jump kick into a protect. That's going to put me in a tough spot. So definitely a good move there to not go for the high jump kick, just in case both of the Pokemon or the Pokemon that you would chose to attack chooses to protect. That's definitely the safer play to make. So now we'll see, this isn't a repeat of turn 1, because now without the threat of fake out, there's a lot more going on and there's a lot more things that Tom can do safely. So that double protect does take a little bit of the pressure off that Matt was exerting on turn 1. So Tom decides he wants to U-turn out. He doesn't want to give up his Pheromosa right away, and maybe he didn't want a high jump kick for a potential Mimikyu switch in or something of that nature. So he's going for a U-turn, going to pick what he wants to bring in here to this slot, you know, to eat the attack that Salazzle is going to be going for. And it does look like Raichu's what he wants, as the Poison Jab for Pheromosa goes into what was the Pheromosa slot, is now Raichu, deals like 70% damage and gets the poison, as Salazzle goes for the overheat also into the Raichu slot. So that takes Raichu off the field. But I do think Arcanine's going to have its pick of which one of these Pokemon it wants to KO here, as it goes for the Flare Blitz into Pheromosa. That will indeed pick up the KO, dealing a ton of damage to Pheromosa. So these two traded Pokemon, and now both trainers are going to pick which of the two they have in the back to bring in. We know Tom does have Pheromosa, and it's not in a bad place to come in and you know, start to clean up the game. But he could have something else that he wants to bring out instead. So Tom opting to bring in his Garchomp, which will be threatened by Pheromosa's Ice Beam. However, because Pheromosa is still going to be threatened by Salazzle, you know, you can't just safely Ice Beam, because if you Ice Beam into a Protect and then lose Pheromosa, you know, that can be a bad day. So I definitely think this turn comes down to just who makes the right read. There's a lot of 50-50s going on. Does Garchomp protect? Does it not? Does he attack Arcanine, or does he focus Pheromosa? And that's just a read you have to make. You got to go with your gut and hope it pays off. So Garchomp doesn't protect, and that's huge. That means Pheromosa gets to fire off an Ice Beam into it, pick up the KO on the Garchomp. And another thing that means is that Salazzle has lost the ability to switch out, so its reduced special attack due to the overheats that it's fired off are going to stay, as Pheromosa survives thanks to its Focus Sash after the Salazzle fires off another overheat into the Pheromosa. So definitely a good play by Tom there. He didn't need to risk any damage onto his Pheromosa. He still had his Focus Sash intact, so he knew that even if he attacked into the Protect, he would be able to take that attack. at least the one from the Salazzle and be in good shape next turn. It just so happened that it paid off where he was able to get the KO right away. And then again, going for that Z Electric into the Salazzle is going to pick up that KO regardless. And so finally, we see Matt's Arcanine hit the field. Now we do know that that Arcanine does have the potential for Z Fire, and Pheromosa's only at 1 HP is easily going to go down to a Extreme Speed. However, this Arcanine's still going to have to fight back from a 3v1 situation, which is not the easiest thing to do. So Tom deciding, I want to reset that Intimidate and potentially fire off an Intimidate into Matt's Arcanine. However, Arcanine doesn't go for the Extreme Speed. Instead, it wants to go for the Inferno Overdrive. And that might seem like superfluous, you know, you're like, it only has 1 HP, why are you firing off a Z move, you know, save that for something else. And the answer here is, it's like, if he figures that Pheromosa is going to protect, oh, okay, so he's going into the Arcanine slot, you know, targeting down the partners, thinking, well, if Pheromosa protects, I don't want to attack into that slot and deal no damage. I can pick it off with Extreme Speed at my leisure. I just need to get rid of everything else first. That wasn't the case. Pheromosa didn't protect and was able to deal a lot of damage to Arcanine. And so now that Tapu Fini is on the field, to be able to hit Arcanine with a Scald pretty much locks up the game. However, Pheromosa does go, gets the high jump kick to connect with Arcanine, and takes the game and the match. So congratulations to Tom Vehewald advancing. He's our first finalist to advance to the last battle. Really well played set, really exciting. I loved watching the Pheromosa mirrors, and I really enjoyed watching how these two players adapted to each other, you know, and tried to make sure that they kept on their tempo despite what the opponent was doing to them. So that's just good Pokemon that we got to see. Up next, I believe we're going to have the next top 4 match.